Hey guys, this is Coach Walker here. I am going to be talking to you a little bit today about the different types of jurisdiction that are out there. So we've brushed in the past on one, what type of federal courts exist, and then two, we talked about what types of law are out there. And so this third lesson is really going to be about combining all of those. Before I do that, we're going to have a quiz next week. I'm not sure what day. I'm not going to make it Monday likely, but do stay posted. Here are the words. I'm going to go ahead and provide the quiz words for you so you can see them. And as soon as I figure out sharing my screen. Okay, so these are the quiz words, and I'll even zoom in a little bit for you so you can get a better look. It's going to be, again, no different than before. It's just the highlighted words here on the side. So those are your quiz words. These highlighted ones, go ahead and write those down for me, please. And please do go ahead and write them down because so I can at least see proof that you're listening to these videos and doing what you need to be doing. So with that said, let's look at the section of notes for today. So we are covering jurisdiction. We are covering, so here's the words. I think there was an issue with what I was sharing with you. So I'm gonna hop out of that real quick. Okay, and then I'm gonna share a new screen with you. Sorry, this technology is not making life easy. Okay, so this is what I wanted. So what you should see is the PowerPoint. It should say that we're talking about jurisdiction. Let's get to it. So as far as jurisdiction goes, there are all jurisdiction is well, it's a power to hear a case. So and there's a Latin word that literally it translates. In fact, jurisdiction itself is made up of two separate Latin words. Can you guess at what those are? If you said juris and diction, you are right. Juris meaning, okay, we see a lot of root words there. It's going to mean the law. And then diction should be one you're more familiar with. Words is often what's said. And you're close. You're not wrong. It's going to be word to speak. Okay, to speak. So when we talk about jurisdiction, we literally mean to speak the law, the power to speak the law. So when we say jurisdiction, we're saying that they have authority over this type of case, and we typically talk about it in terms of judicial circles. Now you can talk about it in terms of federal and state government. The state government for Virginia has jurisdiction over its boundaries. Not necessarily the same for the federal government, given depending on the circumstances. The federal government also doesn't have jurisdiction, for example, in Great Britain and things that go on over there. That would be the British government. They have jurisdiction. But in this context, and in the context for this unit, we're going to be talking about jurisdiction as it relates to the judicial branch and which courts have the power to speak the law or decide upon the law in certain cases. We know, for example, that tax courts, it wouldn't make any sense for tax courts to judge or rule over or make a decision in a murder case. That would be silly. So it's not that is a ridiculous example. It's not always that cut and dry. Let's see if we can make it that way. So in order for a court to hear a case, there must be two things that must stick in your mind. So we pretty much just discussed regional area. We discussed the boundaries of Virginia. We discussed if a case took place in another country. It wouldn't matter if two Americans, killed each other in Great Britain. Okay, the fact of the matter is that would be a case that was decided upon in Great Britain, not the United States. But if we're assuming that the court case that geography is not a factor, that it takes place within a court's geographical jurisdiction, there are two other ways in which a court case is decided. One is going to be subject matter. And the subject matter of a case can determine whether it is going to be heard at state courts, like in the courts of Virginia, or whether it's going to be heard in the federal courts. Take a look at a few of these examples. These are actually mentioned in which article would be the judicial branch. Article 3, very good. Okay, I can see you're listening and you're on top of it. You guys are great. So cases which involve the Constitution, obviously anything involving freedom of speech, anything involving an issue with the Constitution itself could not be heard at the state court. I'll take that back for a little bit. The state court could hear like a freedom of speech case, but it would be the federal court that would have ultimate jurisdiction in that case, one way or another. So cases that involve the Constitution, but then there's a bunch of other examples, and I want you to know each one, okay? You should know treaties, for example, would fall under federal jurisdiction. It makes sense because we know that states cannot participate in treaties. Bankruptcy and embezzling, that is another case. For whatever reason, they've determined that bankruptcy laws should remain uniform throughout the United States. So no one state determines bankruptcy laws. Kidnapping, multiple times that involves actions between state lines. That is a federal jurisdiction case. Patents and copyrights, which we talked about. Maritime and sea law. And there's interesting jurisdictional kind of issues there. I know that in the exact mileage, I'm not sure. For some reason, 5 miles is sticking out in my mind. I'm not quite sure. I know that states have up to a certain jurisdiction that might be 2, and then federal might even be something like 30 out from its coastline. But maritime and sea law, that is federal jurisdiction. Anything involving drugs, again, dealing with borders very often, it makes sense that would be federal. Guns, Second Amendment. Tax fraud, another example. We've already talked about the U.S. tax courts. Civil cases over $50,000 only win from different states, so that's important to take note of. Cases involving state law, okay, so cases involving state law, that is going to be obviously fall under state. So a couple examples of those could be like divorce case, adoption case, and anything involving juveniles. And we're going to talk about, notice this part we need to talk about a little bit further, civil cases over $50,000. And actually, I'm going to make one edit here. It's 75, I believe now. So $75,000. So make sure you make that correction. Make sure you make that correction in your notes. Parties involved. I have to make that correction again. Anything under $75,000 is going to be state. Is going to be what we refer to as diversity of citizenship cases, if the two parties are from different states. So if, for example, you got one person suing another person and they're both from Virginia, then this type of case would not apply. I might give you a scenario like that, so don't be thrown off, please. So there, anything under $75,000, that is going to be concurrent jurisdiction. Okay, so this case has concurrent jurisdiction. And what might be the idea behind this? Why would they, if there's a civil case over $75,000, why wouldn't they just have it in one state or the other? If you said, or if you thought, the answer was because the state courts could be biased towards members of their state, then you are a smart cookie. Okay, that is exactly the reason why. In effect, when between citizens of different states and those or those of different countries, it has to have concurrent jurisdiction, which means, as we and that word concurrent should not look alien to you. That is either state or federal. So different types of jurisdiction. We've got original jurisdiction. This essentially means that they are the first court to hear a case. And we've talked about that. Which tier would that be? If you said first tier, you're right. If you said second tier, you're wrong. Okay, so first tier, original jurisdiction. Appellate jurisdiction. What are those? Court cases that are heard on appeal. Good. So Supreme Court could be heard on appeal, as well as anything on the second tier could be heard on appeal. Concurrent jurisdiction. This is separate from that federal judiciary diagram. That more applies to specific situations. Concurrent jurisdiction, meaning shared between state and federal courts. And then example of that could be diversity of citizenship cases. That would be an effective example. And then exclusive jurisdiction, which we haven't talked about quite as much. It just basically means if there is a court created, like a specialty court that's created for a specific thing, subject matter, what have you, then it is the only court that can hear that type of case. And so an example of this would be juvenile courts, tax court, military court. All of those would hear cases relevant to their specific subject matter, and they're the only courts that can hear those types of cases. So what I'd like to do real quickly is I'd like to go through different case examples. I would like you to tell me a couple of things. One, tell me what kind of law, okay, is at stake, okay, is of the 3 C's: constitutional, criminal, civil. Is it federal, state, or concurrent jurisdiction? Which of those cases would it fall under? Federal, state, or concurrent? Is it heard only by federal? Is it heard only by state? Or could it be heard by both? Based off of what we've talked about, please give me an answer there. And if federal, which court? If state or concurrent? This is not necessarily going to apply because we have not gone over state court. So only for when we're talking about federal, are you going to tell me whether it's federal, state, or concurrent, or excuse me, are you going to break down and tell me which court it's going to? Kind of a review of what we've done before. So we're adding a couple steps to the worksheets that we've done in the past, and we'll go from there. So let's look at this. We'll do this one together. After he messes up routine plastic surgery, Bailey, Virginia, sues Dr. Loving, also from Virginia, for $500,000. Here's another one. James Marks is charged with sale and distribution of illegal narcotics. So for both of these cases, where is it going to go? So after he messes up routine plastic surgery, we see there should be a couple things that should stand out. One, that there is a dollar value involved. And if we're thinking about that, we should be thinking, oh, maybe that's diversity of citizenship. Hold your horses, right? Look here. Bailey's from Virginia. Dr. Loving is from Virginia. So it can't be diversity of citizenship case, even though we've got a dollar figure. So the dollar figure isn't necessarily going to be relevant in this case. So because we've got both of these, they're from the same state, this is a very simple case. This is going to go, first of all, we're talking about, of the three C's, which one? I would say it's more likely to be civil. It's more likely to be civil. This is a lawsuit. We're talking about state, and we can go ahead and stop there. How about this one? James Marks is charged with sale and distribution of illegal narcotics. Narcotics meaning drugs, okay? So what do we know here? Well, of the three kinds of law, this is obviously criminal. This is obviously going to go to, which of the three? Federal, because it deals with drugs, okay? It deals with illegal narcotics. If it's federal, we've got to then do number three. Which court is it going to be? In this case, we're talking about probably the federal district courts, probably federal district. And that is, if it doesn't fit in any of those specialty courts, then it's got to go to a federal district court. It's not military, it's not tax, it doesn't involve treaties, on down the line. So it's got to go to a federal district court. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the rest of these. I want you to just write down the answers for each one, okay? And we will go over these tomorrow, okay? Okay, pause the video and write down answers to these. Just go ahead and write them down in your notes. Go ahead and write them down in your notes. You don't need to write down the question, just write down the answers. Okay, unpause. Okay, so if your video at this point should be unpaused, which means that you're done with questions 1 through 10. And let's look at the rest of them, 11 through 20. Pause the video. Write down the answers to each one of these. Okay, at this point, you've completed 1 through 20 for this section. All of this, your notes, your answers to these, all need to be included on the same document, okay? And I want you to submit them via Dropbox, all right? Do so tomorrow, all right? Have a good day.